And I think every entrepreneur should go through that. Every leader, every human should go through that process of learning to turn down the internal chatter so that the external world becomes more open to you. Hey, welcome to a podcast where dreams meet determination and success is just around the corner. I'm your host, Suzanne Taylor-King, and I'm here to help you unlock the full potential of your business and your life. Welcome to Unlock Your Way with STK. Let's unlock your path to success together. Good morning, everyone. It's Suzanne Taylor-King here for another episode of Unlock Your Way with STK. And we are here today with a new friend of mine, Eric Moore. Immediately, I knew that this coach was somebody I wanted to have a conversation with. Not only is he a coach for introverts and leadership, but he's got a fabulous background, the black wall. I just love it. And number two, his website just stood out to me with so much energy and positivity. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you. You know, when you said background, I thought you meant my professional background.
Oh, no. We don't need to talk about that.
And it's real. It's real. It's not.
Yes.
A lot of people think it's a virtual one, but yeah.
Well, did somebody decorate that for you? Or did you design it?
Yeah. Yep. My wife helped me paint it, but yeah, I put it together. I had something in mind. I watched enough YouTube videos to see, oh, that's how you paint a room properly.
Yes. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well done. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the introverted leader. And I'd love to dive into how you got started, not only with this mission, with this niche of people. How did it really start for you?
Well, there's two parts. One of which is that there was a realization in my early adult years that I had been an introvert hiding in an extrovert's clothing. What I mean by that is I have a family of lots of extroverts, loud storytellers and gregarious and always the life of the party. And I couldn't keep up and I tried. So once I started getting out in the world, I started realizing, this is tiring. I can't keep up. But then professionally in the world, I worked with a lot of engineers, software developers, UX, UI designers, app designers, graphic designers. And the pattern emerged: introvert. And I was able to connect with these individuals on a meaningful level as their leader, as their manager, where they felt like, oh, you actually understand. Just because I don't talk to you doesn't mean I'm not valuable, or because I don't talk to you every single day and ask you about, your hiking or your kids doesn't mean I can't be a good coworker. And that's what has brought me to my mission.
Wow. So you actually lived this in the work environment. How did it affect you, before you realized what was happening? How did it affect you as a leader?
Painfully, in that I saw a lot of really talented people get overlooked. Whether it was in a meeting, they had really interesting ideas, or an idea that could move something forward, whatever the thing was we were talking about in the meeting, whether it's software code or a certain design decision. It wasn't really the issue. It was just, they're too quiet. And they would often get overlooked for promotions, and promotions doesn't always mean, hey, getting a bigger check. It just meant like, I wouldn't let so-and-so lead the project. And that's where it started to affect me. Like, okay, there's something going on here. And I know I can help. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does, because I've noticed that in employing people in the past who typically jumped to the front of the line was usually the person who was more engaged verbally, energetically, right? They were showing up with that thing I call charisma, and if they had that, then it was kind of like they got the spotlight of attention. And those extroverted people, I'm one of them.
Yeah.
I had to learn not to talk as much, when to, I had to learn to be a better listener, because I was always the talker. And no surprise, doing what I do now, right? Being on stage, having a podcast, it's not surprising. But I had to learn to be a better listener. So it was kind of like the opposite of the introvert homework.
Sure.
What would you say is the superpower of the introvert?
Well, before we get there, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Yeah. How did you learn to become a better listener? Or better yet, what was the trigger point for you to do that?
I think it was the amount of listening I was doing to my own negative chatter. It was kind of in the study of positive psychology and growth mindset years ago. And I kind of noticed that I was always talking in my own head, what I was going to say next, and it was just constant, whether it was negative feedback or just that constant chatter of somebody talking in my head. And I knew I needed to learn that, to turn that off if I was going to do anything positive, growth mindset wise.
Yeah.
So I think that was the beginning of being a better listener, not listening to someone else while I was planning what I was going to say next was key. And then in that process, it actually turned off the negative chatter in my own head. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You can't do this. No, 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 no. And that running commentary, once I learned to channel that, turn that off, the space that was created was actually meant for listening. So I think it made me a better coach in the long run, because I did that work on myself.
Amazing. I like that answer a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just finished about a couple of months ago, Ethan Kross's book, Chatter, which talks a lot about these concepts. And one of the things that I've adopted from his approach, not so much for listening, but when it comes to that negative self-talk or the inner thoughts, say your name.
Yes.
So, Eric, why'd you do that? You're so stupid. But what you're doing in that part is he's getting you to say, look, would you ever talk that way to a friend?
Yeah.
Likely not. So why are you doing it to yourself?
Yeah.
But
I remember I read a book called Positive Intelligence.
Yeah.
And did that program. It's called the PQ program.
Okay.
And it was actually a mindfulness program that taught you, little techniques to be more mindful and in the moment, things like feeling your fingertips and being aware and slowing down that negative chatter with exactly that. Would you ever talk to your child like that? Better yet, if you're a dog person, would you ever talk to your dog like that? No. The way I talk to my dog is how I want to talk to myself, honestly.
Okay.
So I think that process, and I think every entrepreneur should go through that. Every leader, every human should go through that process of learning to turn down the internal chatter so that the external world becomes more open to you.
Amazing. I'm going to steal that one.
Go ahead. Create it right here.
Story. That's a great story, Suzanne, in that, there was a trigger point for you, but it was around negative self-talk. And that's very helpful to me in understanding. So when I think about the introvert superpower, I think at first it's helpful to just say, let's debunk some myths. Because the other day, I had a friend basically reaffirm some of the myths that still exist about introverts, which is, oh, we're antisocial. You just want to sit in the corner and veg out, nerd out, whatever adjective you can think of. And that's not really the case. And the science has shown us from the work of Suzanne Taylor-King and Adam Grant and others that it's about how we get energy in the world. We, in essence, we have been reduced to a battery, like in the Matrix, in that sense. That, look, I, as an introvert, I'm happy to speak with you and be with you, but at some point, I'm going to have to tap out and go recharge. But as part of that myth, too, we're debunking the myth about an extrovert as well, is that you need to unwind, too. I know there's an in-between, what we call an ambivert, who can kind of float between being away and then being not quite the life of the party, but having that extra battery life, as it were. So what I would say, the key superpower that I really enjoy sharing is, I want you to picture someone first. Let's frame it as a story. And I want you to imagine, I don't know, we'll say Sarah, and she's an introverted manager at a tech company. Surprise, surprise. Right? But during team meetings, she prefers to listen to learn before she dictates any orders. Now, obviously, there's probably going to be an agenda. But for now, let's just assume they're brainstorming. Something's come up. There's a problem. And what introverts are listening for is, are we even on the same page? Should this even be a problem-solving conversation? So what Charles Duhigg's research shows in Super Communicators, his recent book, is we have to first identify what conversation are we about to enter. And introverts have a great approach to that, which is, it's essentially deep listening or active listening, but they're not waiting their turn to speak.
Yes.
So that, to me, is the superpower. It's like, one, do I even know what conversation I'm having? And then two, let me wait and hear all the details first.
Do you think it's actually more purposeful? It sounds, right?
Yeah, that's a great word for it.
Yeah, it feels like the way you described it. And I love Charles Duhigg, by the way. I haven't read his new book yet, so now I'm adding it.
You got to do it. You got to do it. It's a big printer.
Yeah, I'm adding it to the list. But I think when we really think about what you just said, it's being more purposeful with a meeting. So from that assumption, does it mean that introverts could actually be less fluff, more direct, more, I guess, unwilling to deal with all of the extras? They want to just get to the point.
Yes, there is research that shows that. But I think what you're asking, and you keep me honest here, is that directness can turn people off.
It can.
Yeah.
It can.
But here's what some research shows from Adam Grant and his team. So back in 2008, he was challenging this idea that extroverts were only the natural born leaders. So he studied over 1,000 different employees in different scenarios. And what he found was, yes, extroverts are good leaders and introverts are good leaders. But there were two conditions. Well, one for each. One was that introverts are really exceptional leaders when they have proactive employees. In fact, the A types, the boisterous, go get them, even introverts leading sales teams, which you would think you would want an extrovert. this is going to be controversial, but my read on the research is extroverts create followers, not doers. So extroverts are great for people who aren't really self-starters, motivators. They want to be led. On the other hand, introverts already have proactive people in their midst, and they're willing to work for that introverted leader because they are listening first and then saying, go and do as you please. And that directness shows up to some people as, oh, that's not assertive. You're being assholery.
Yeah.
So I know that was a long-winded answer, but I hope that I've hit it on the head for you.
I think so. And I think it makes sense to even a solopreneur. I have noticed that I'm not a details person. I'm a big picture thinker, vision. I could design a business in 20 minutes and give you the marketing plan and how to do it, but I don't want to do it. Like I don't want to do the work of it. I just want to come up with the idea. And I noticed that the people that I've hired over the years were the same because they resonated with me. And when I was ready to hire a full-time assistant, I had done enough homework on myself to realize I need to hire somebody who is detail-oriented, micro-task oriented, loves project management, and I could come up with a project and hand it off. That was my dream. But I really had to know myself before I could have a team member that was like that. And I think that's really key too. Have you found the same with the leaders that you work with?
Yes. Yeah. You couldn't have said it more beautifully or succinctly. Knowing yourself means writing a hell yes and a hell no list.
Yeah. I love that.
Yes, I will do these things.
Yes.
Hell no, I'm not going to do these things. And being clear on that hell no is how you delegate, or is a way to delegate.
Yes.
So yes, to answer your question directly, yes, I see it often and I encourage it.
I think that's amazing because the not to-do list is really, I remember doing it the first time. And I think it was from some Tony Robbins event because he's big on the not to do list.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was a health coach bringing my business online, but very successful with an in-person business. And then, bringing it online to expand my reach was so overwhelming, from content and the Facebook group and I have to post every day and I need a podcast and a blog and a website and all of these things that everybody was telling me I needed, but none of those things were going to bring me clients. I thought I wasn't sure about this because of the way I did business in the past. And I was so overwhelmed with tasks that I forgot to keep meeting people and talking to them and connecting with them, that's how I had grown my business. And I made that not to-do list. And it was so powerful for me, more powerful than any to-do list ever, because it gave me that vision of where I want my business to be. And 15 years later, it's where I want it to be, working 3 days a week with a full-time assistant, making a difference for my clients. Awesome. But my clients don't come from clicking a button on a page and buying a program with me. And I think as an extrovert, where I might be a little in between, I thought that speaking and being online was what was going to actually bring clients to me. And it was such a twist in mindset when I finally realized, it's still the conversations and it's still the talking to people. So what advice, I mean, and this would go for a leader, it would go for a solopreneur, what advice to someone who's uncomfortable with those conversations? And especially the difficult conversations. What's the advice there?
There's a couple of things going on there, because you're talking more, what I, at least I understood, is one part is public speaking.
Yes, public speaking.
You know what? I will tell you, that's a universal fear, regardless if you're an extrovert and introvert.
Okay.
Yeah, in my experience, in large part, nearly everyone I've met is like, yep, I'm deathly afraid of speaking in public, or some version, or I have a client who just has to prepare, boom, 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 list after list, talk to the mirror, talk to anybody who will hear his speech before he'll even step on stage. I haven't met anyone yet that's just like, yep, get me on stage, let's go.
I am now. I learned to do that. Learned to be excited about it, but it took a lot of practice.
See, and I'm not debating that someone can't get there. I've seen a lot of people go through media training and get that second nature.
Yeah.
But before any of that practice, it seems to be a universal fear.
Yeah. What's the joke about at a funeral, most people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy?
I've not heard that, but okay.
Yeah, that's the joke. Like, if you had to choose, public speaking at a funeral or being the one that's in the casket, which would you choose? And people would say, "Oh my God, like, I don't want to be up in front of people."
Yeah, so I don't really. I have tips, but I'm not really an expert on public speaking, like TEDx's or a Toastmasters. That you probably couldn't learn easily online, which is part of it.
What about in front of a boardroom? That's scary. That's scary.
Exactly. Even in meetings, a lot of my clients are just like, I just have team meetings that I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
So for that, a lot of times I just tell people, know your S. You can figure out what the S word is. Know your stuff cold. Meaning, try not to enter the conversation with feelings and emotions. You may have heard the term facts over feelings, and sometimes that's used in a pretty negative context. But what I mean here is, if you can stay focused on what you're about to present. So, Suzanne, let's say you're the boss, and I'm on the hook to you to deliver some latest details, data points about a campaign that we've ran. And if I internally am afraid because I see that the numbers are not doing well, you're already bringing the emotion. Instead, just say the facts. Suzanne, we've looked at the latest campaign and we're below goal in 3 parts. And then stop talking. Wait 7 seconds. That sort of pregnant pause is a game changer for people who are nervous, afraid to speak up. Why? Because you're allowing the thud of the data to hit, but you're also allowing the space for the person to receive the data, the message, and then they'll go, okay, why do you think that is? Then you unpack. Then over time, the speaker becomes comfortable because now they're given permission to speak on the things they know.
Well, I love the pause idea. Creating space sometimes is the hardest thing when you're nervous. Yeah.
Very good. You just did it right there. But it happens to extroverts and introverts, which is we want to fill the space.
Yeah.
So the pause is always a great way to manage that excitement or fear that you have, or anxiety about speaking. Now, tough conversations, on the other hand, are a different story, but I don't want to move too fast ahead if I miss something.
No, my only question is, when you're nervous, when you're emotional about something,
Mhm.
I think learning to slow your own thoughts, or maybe it's even your body down. I know when I get nervous, I get kind of jittery inside.
Yeah.
Um, what tips do you have for slowing that down, maybe before a difficult conversation or during? I mean, how could you help there?
Yeah, there's two go-to methods that I like. One of which are what are called polyvagal exercises.
Hmm.
The vagus nerves or vagal nerves all run up here. I'm not a doctor, so please. But what I've learned is doing butterfly techniques and tapping
Mm.
polyvagal nerve can help. Even pinching in between the
That's one of my favorites.
yeah. You had mentioned it before, which is what can you see around you? We call it the name the five. So what five colors do I see? What five textures do I feel?
Mm.
What are five things that I smell? If you have that many, if you can try to find, like I have a pink sticky note, got a black microphone, you're slowing yourself down and using language in your brain, right, internally to get back to basics.
Mm.
And those are the two methods I like. Either it's a physical, like calming down,
Mm-hmm.
or it's an internal dialogue, black keyboard, orange coffee cup. Oh, I smell the morning air. Those have helped
Mm.
both myself and a number of my clients.
I like that. I like the senses thing because you're drawing attention away from the nerve or the statement in your head. I got to give this talk. Oh my God, I'm so nervous. Or I don't know.
Yep.
And you're drawing attention away from that. And I love smell for that. That's my personal favorite because I was an aromatherapist for a hobby. That was like
Oh, wow.
what I did as a hobby.
Yeah.
And I love smells and I'm very smell sensitive. So I could be in a room and notice, oh, somebody has a cologne on that I really like, or somebody's wearing a perfume that I really like. And I could focus in on that smell and it would, change my attention away from myself.
Yeah. That's a great approach to the anxiety or
Mm.
just, but I like that you enjoy smell. I do too.
Yeah.
I have an infuser in my office that I have to
Yeah.
fire up from time to time.
Yeah. I have a couple things. I have an essential oil diffuser, and then I have some, those reed scent things that are always calming for me too. I always go for calming scents because I tend to be a little over caffeinated and hyper. So I need things to slow me down. And when I'm slower, the thoughts come easier. Um, I just got footage back from a talk I gave in May on stage in person.
Oh.
And I rewatched it this morning, kind of critiquing the talk.
Uh-oh.
And I love the talk. I love the information. But I noticed a couple things that in the past would have been like, nope, not sharing that with anybody, not putting that out there.
Yeah.
And then I thought, I'm not having that feeling of insecurity, right? I'm not, wow, the information is more important than what my pants look like in the video.
Okay.
And I've noticed with my clients, and I'm curious about yours, that the visual of things, like how do I look in this moment? Do I look professional? Am I dressed properly? Like, am I going to make a first impression that's Like, are they going to be staring at me? Are they going to be looking at me? That insecurity piece right there is the number one thing to get past. Give a good presentation. You can't care about yourself. You have to care about the information more. Have you found that same thing?
Appearance specifically, like clothing choices, not necessarily, although when people show up on camera, there's tips like don't wear patterns and, loud jackets, little things like that. Usually what the question comes for me is, am I presentable in sort of auditory presence? Am I being professional? And I just simply ask them, can you even define those words?
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
And they can't. They're like, well, I don't know what professional means. Okay, well, then you can't fail at a thing that you don't even know or can't define. So let's start there. And then I get them to think about, well, STK is professional. Okay, great. Let's model her. Or, who pick said person. And it usually gets them out of their head. Because really the fear comes down to a lack of clarity most of the time.
I agree. I like
don't have a definition of said thing, so therefore I'm going to fear it.
Right. And most of the time, those definitions of professional or, somebody who's a good presenter are made up in their own head. Yeah. And there's not, you have to bring something tangible to it. I love, you brought something tangible to it. Can we define that? Can we define what that means for you? Really, really good. Jo is visiting us today and she said, wonderful work with Introverts. Just looked at your website. So Jo has been around me for years and years and years. And she just looked at your website because we're here talking today. That's amazing. Hi, Jo. Hi, Jo. Yeah. And I just love bringing awesome people who do awesome things to other people. And that's one of my superpowers, not only connecting people, introducing people, of course, once I know them, but just this platform, being able to say, and Eric, we just met, less than a month ago?
I think so. Yeah.
And immediately there was an attraction to what you do. And I just thought he needs to be in front of more people. And if I can have that conversation with him, I know it would be really fun. And that's just a feeling you get when you meet people. How can introverts be more comfortable meeting people, getting introduced to people, and being that more connected person, and still within their, introverted boundaries? They don't have to have my boundaries with it. What does that look like?
Yeah, well, first, thank you for inviting me on. And yeah, it's great that we connected quite quickly. And to all my introverts out there, my fellow introverts, I'm trying to model this as best as I can for you. Yeah. And that is reaching out to, more lively people like Suzanne, and more lively than I. So there's really two things that I think about that have not only helped me, but my clients get out there and stay authentic to their introverted self. Number one, ask open-ended questions, because you don't have to do all the talking. Introverts will talk once you get on a subject that they really enjoy. But to really ease into that, if you're at a networking or a mixer of some sort, I'd say, instead of asking somebody, well, what do you do? And you get that really rote pitch. Yeah, I do X for X by this time and this date, and I've served this many people. And at that point, you're checked out. Instead, hey, Suzanne, what do you love the most about what you do? and it makes it more about Suzanne and the other person, and she'll go into it.
Yeah.
And then you start to ease up because as you know, the introvert superpower is that deep listening. So they're listening and they're going, oh, tell me more about that, Suzanne. So what's happening here is you're giving room to the other person, and you as the introvert, you're not having to carry the conversation.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And so part 2 is now it's your turn to talk. Watch out for verbal processing. And this happens on both sides of extroverts, introverts. But there are people who just have to think out loud while they speak. There are instances where that makes sense, particularly if you're problem solving. But try to be as clear as you can about the very thing you want to talk about. Now, you might not always have that, particularly like in a extemporaneous situation, like you're at a party and you get thrown for a loop at a certain question. But what I've found with introverts, because they like to prepare so much, just be clear. Where do you want that conversation to go?
Yeah, I like the intentionality of that piece again, because deciding what you want the outcomes of conversations to be beforehand can be very calming.
Yeah.
Going into a meeting yesterday, I had prepared for the meeting some notes, some questions, shared it with the other people that were going to be in this brainstorming session per se. And that's like me. That's what I do. Here's my thoughts. Here's my questions. Add to the document, and then it'll be a productive, meeting with 4 people.
Yeah.
And I think deciding outcomes beforehand. Okay, so if we're going to go into this meeting, what are 3 incredible outcomes that could happen from having this meeting? We develop a partnership. They hire me. And this is internal. This is just for me.
Yeah.
We have a partnership, or they hire me, or we share ideas. They go on their way and I go on my way. That's still great. We share ideas because I love to do that. And so deciding those 3 outcomes before that conversation put me in a more intentional space during the conversation, guardrails per se of the conversation. And I love free flow conversation like we're doing, but I also, if you only have an hour for a meeting or you only have 20 minutes for a meeting, guardrails are so important. And it sounds to me through this whole conversation that introverts might have that superpower really dialed in.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the use of guardrails, but I use the metaphor of the sandbox, particularly when it comes to meetings. The sandbox rule says simply this: you're in a sandbox. You can build whatever you want. You just can't go out of the box. And those 4 corners can be the agenda items, the intentionality, the outcomes, the goals. But, there's times where you just need to have a free flow. And there, whether it's the introvert or the extrovert, there has to be a time cop.
Yes.
Okay, we're at the 15-minute mark. We've kind of exhausted that. Let's move on to sandbox side number 3.
I like
in keeping in that metaphor. So I try to be mindful of the fact that we don't want to constrict meaningful dialogue. But that's when the sandbox comes in, or guardrails.
I like that. I like that a lot. Great. I can tell from everything we talked about today that you have a system that you follow with people, which is really attractive to me as a coach. I love systems. I love processes. Like, it's just, ooh, I like that. What is the number one thing that you do first with clients? And then tell me a little bit about that process. Where do you start with people?
Well, I'll be careful. I love systems too. But to me, coaching is a powerful conversation.
Good.
I got to make sure you're auditioning me as much as I'm auditioning you. And I want to be able to serve you powerfully in that moment. Now, you can define powerfully in a number of ways, but I just have to show up. And the system is simple. Listen.
Good.
Ask interesting questions. Or I forget the author's name, but ask beautiful questions.
Beautiful questions.
Beautiful questions.
I like that.
That's my only system in the beginning. What question is going to not only spark a meaningful conversation, but signals that, oh, Eric's not messing around. He wants you to be a better person in whatever that form is.
Beautiful. I believe that same thing about coaching. I believe that it's, this trust-based relationship. And without the things you've just said in the beginning, you really can't establish that relationship. So
yeah.
I'm sure that your clients stick around with you for a long time afterwards too. Once they love Eric, they stick around.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're able to connect with that.
Yeah.
So powerful.
Yeah, it really is. It's kind of leaving me with a pause of my own. So really good. All right. Well, let's wrap up. This has been an amazing conversation. I just think that you are such an incredible coach, an incredible leader, and so needed in the world. Loved our conversation today. How can my listeners get in touch with you, follow you, and absorb more goodness?
Yeah, before I get to that though, it's been good to have you in my life now. You've given me faith back into humanity, as it were.
Aww.
And I've been intentional in being selective who I put in my life and who I do not. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that we had this conversation.
Same.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So most of where I can be reached is on X and LinkedIn.
Okay.
Or am I supposed to say formerly known as Twitter?
I don't know. I'm not sure what to say.
I don't.
As far as that goes.
X is I'm at Lead Quietly. LinkedIn, I'm sure you might have the link there, but
so I'm going to share that.
Yeah. But yeah, reach out to me. My website has a contact info. I'm open to any kind of conversation, DM in LinkedIn or X. And having conversations like this is what lights me up.
I love that. I love the fact that you can have conversations like this. You can deepen relationships with other people. I mean, because really at a really high level, I call myself a coach. You call yourself a coach. Mm-hmm. And we could actually refer clients to each other. We could actually work with the same client because we do something totally different. Right. And being open to that in itself has opened up more doors for me in business over the last 15 years as a coach than anything else. So I want to encourage that. Get to know people who have the same label as you and don't be afraid of that.
Yeah. Coach kind of gets a bad rap, doesn't it?
It does sometimes. And I made a post the other day that was kind of funny about coaches who coach coaches who coach coaches. And that circle kind of felt weird. Yeah. And how can we break out of that? We need to be able to refer more business to each other and stay in our lane about what our zone of genius is. And that's been the homework for a long time with many of the coaches I've worked with.
Yeah. I heard recently from one of the coaches, more, I don't know if you want to say famous or popular coach, Rich Litvin. Mm-hmm. And he says, it's easier to say coaching is just a tool. It's a process. Yes. But I'm your thought partner. I'm your advisor, your trusted advisor. But yeah, sometimes it's hard to get past that label and really show
Yes.
the value that you bring.
Yes. Yes. Well, we'll have many more conversations on that, I'm
Yes.
sure. Thank
I'm
you
sure.
again for being
Yes.
here today. Appreciate
you.
you. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another Friday episode of Unlock Your Way with STK. We'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in to another empowering episode of Unlock Your Way. I hope you found today's discussion inspiring and you're ready to take your business and personal growth to that next level. If you're feeling as fired up as I am and eager to unlock that full potential, I'm here to help you on your journey and provide that personalized guidance tailored to your unique goals and challenges. Simply book a one-on-one coaching call with me and we'll dive deep into your business aspirations and see how we could co-create a roadmap for your success. And whether you're striving to scale an enterprise or just getting started, I'm here to support you every step of the way. To schedule your coaching call, simply visit the website at unlockyourwaywithstk.com, click on the Book a Call button, and we'll turn your dreams into that reality. Subscribe and review on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube. Plus, you can join over 800 entrepreneurs in the Idea Lab Facebook group. Let's make success as an entrepreneur happen together. Until next time, I'm STK. Keep dreaming big, stay focused, and most of all, have fun while you're doing it.